Welcome to the Tuesday Weekend, the podcast that gets their side work done before they ask to be cut. I'm Josh Hobson. With me is bartender Nick Parkin. Howdy, Nick.
How you doing?
Oh, pretty well. How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad. Just enjoying the really nice winter in San Diego. It sucks to be all the rest of you.
Carson City, we actually had a unusually mild weekend, and I know it's been bitterly cold everywhere else in the country, so sorry about that. I wish I still had my snow. It rained on Saturday and all the snow went away. But this week we are talking about restaurant and bar managers. That's right, managers, the babysitters for adults that work shorter hours and make more money than they do. I have been a kitchen manager, a liquor manager, a banquet manager, and a dining room manager at a really pretty nice Italian restaurant. Nick has also been a bar manager, and we have both worked for a wide range of managers about whom we have some opinions. So I think a useful way to start a conversation about managers is by trying to define what it is a manager does. We will get back to some differentiation between supervisors like a lead bartender or a server captain. And Nick, I know you have some opinions on that.
Right.
And I will also acknowledge that there is a good amount of overlap between what a front of house manager does and what a chef does in the kitchen. And we can get back to some of the similarities and differences there.
Well, we're definitely getting to the differences on that because that's what I'm dealing with right now on the bar.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, no, there's overlap, but they're different worlds. So as far as the roles a manager fills, as I mentioned, adult babysitter, and that truly is part of it. But let's look at some of the daily, weekly, monthly things that a bar or restaurant manager needs to do. So I want to start with posing a question. What is the most important task that a manager does? Is it hire, train, and discipline staff? Is it scheduling and payroll, ordering and inventory? Is it making sure health code standards are followed? Is it running the host stand or the floor during service? Is it solving issues or conflicts as they happen during service? Is it being a camp counselor for the staff? Or is it being that intermediary between the staff and the ownership? I can make a case for, well, at least any of the first half of those. So, I mean, let's take these all, I think, in turn.
Well, first I want to say that a manager does all of those things.
All of those.
Now, I'm going to just go over to baseball because we both love that. Now you're talking about who's the heavy hitter, who's the great defensive guy, who's your best pitcher. I mean, they're all good at one of those. They're all great at one of those things, and then they do the rest of them. So
yes.
They're all important.
And I will quote Sun Tzu's Art of War, sure, a 1400-year-old Chinese book on military tactics, but one of the great managerial tomes ever written. And one of the points that Sun Tzu makes is you look at the talent pool that you have and you assign tasks according to ability.
Yes, exactly.
And now, sure, really at that time, especially when officerships were given to the nephews, were given to the brothers, there was a lot of nepotism going on. The idea of taking the most talented and giving them that position was kind of revolutionary and actually made him, among the better generals. So part of it is doing the best with what you have, but then part of it too is also recognizing where you can develop new skills in your staff and push a server to also become a bartender, to, push a cook who maybe's only worked the fryer station to give the grill a try, and to actually not just throw them on there and hope the best works out, but to show them how to do that, to effectively give them the tools that they need to be successful at that role.
Absolutely. Like you alluded to earlier when we were talking about staffing and such, when you've got that great cook who you think could be a chef and you're just telling them, nope, you're where I want you, you're good, and not giving them more to do, they're going to leave.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a big part of a manager's job to recognize, taking the wheat from the chaff. It's like you've got some really, really good people, then you've got some people who you can fill in the schedule with.
You
You've
have
got to
your
realize that not every roster is going to be a 1 through 9 all-star roster.
exactly. Sometimes you absolutely need to put the warm bodies into those positions because somebody needs to be there.
And I worked with a manager who just couldn't get over the fact he wanted the best people working all the time, and he thought everyone could be good, and he just couldn't get over. I'm like, dude,
Well,
we've got people who they're solid, they're good, but this is it. They've hit their plateau. You've just
I
got to realize they're not going to get better.
I will also very much say when I was running banquets, I preferred to have a smaller, more dedicated crew
Yes.
that I knew was doing the job well than having a bigger crew that I would have constantly have to be going behind and making sure, oh, okay, hey guys, back on the floor. Come on. In part because then the servers make more. That tip is being just split among fewer people. But then also I know the work is getting done. And part of it too is I would hire people and it would take an event or two to know this isn't going to work out. Sometimes, like, okay, it wasn't even necessarily about the experience level, it's about the attitude. It's about the, okay, this is somebody who maybe they aren't quite where I need them to be, but their attitude's in the right place. They're mentally here. They're willing to learn. I can work with that versus somebody with more experience than me who comes in knowing more than I do and I can't teach them anything.
My last job at the restaurant, I was on the banquet floor. So,
Mhm.
I mean, we had a 2-story restaurant, and anytime there was a banquet, that was my bar. I was automatically on it if I was scheduled that day. There was no like you're getting the day off or someone else is working this, except for one manager who was a blithering idiot. And it depended on who the manager scheduled on those. My banquet manager always tried to get the best banquet servers on, but everybody wanted to work like, oh, it's a big banquet. I want to work that. There was one that I had to work that I was specifically requested to work a regular's wedding, reception, and they were regulars of the restaurant. I know them very well. And instead of giving me the 2 best banquet servers, they gave me the 2 most senior servers who wanted to be on it because they knew the tip was going to be massive. And they were the 2 worst banquet servers because usually when you get down to the personalities, when you're looking at other people you work with, your best servers are lone wolves. They are great at what they do, and they really don't care about what anybody else does. They're the ones who are really good at this. They either do their side work better than everybody or they don't do side work at all. But they just do not work well with others. They're not good at sharing. My best banquet servers are. They're just the whole room is ours. We're all taking care of everything. If I'm taking a drink out to a table and someone asks me for something, I just go get it. I don't tell the server, hey, they need this.
Sure.
You work together.
You work together. Well, and really, one of the things I preferred to do in the ballroom is to essentially, sure, I would assign a section. These tables are yours, but you're also supposed to look at the sections next to you.
Yeah.
And sure, yes, some of the busier ones, I have to more or less you put the blinders on a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
or absolutely some of the events, if you're at the head table, then that's the one you're focused on. Don't even look at the rest of the room until you are done. But also, I mean, part of what I like to do with my banquet team is, again, the whole floor is your section. So as you see someone new come in, go offer them a drink. Worst case scenario, someone else already offered them a drink and you're just providing good service and they're like, oh
Exactly.
no, she already's getting it for me. Okay. I don't think that's personally embarrassing. I had
Oh,
somebody who was like, and I had a couple of events where I had to bring in people from usually other restaurants, occasionally other departments, which I don't always love bringing the office people in, but sometimes again, I just needed that warm body
yeah.
there. And they very much needed the structure of, okay, these 3 tables are yours,
Yep.
these 3 tables are hers. And, just look at those in a regular service dining room. That makes sense. But in a banquet, that's
It does
not
not.
how I prefer to run it.
No, no, no. And once again,
Right.
my banquet managers were almost never there for banquets at this restaurant. They would set them up. I mean, I would like, how do you want the tables set up? And they're like, do it however you want. And then immediately when the guests show up, like, oh, we wanted this. And then I'm like, why didn't you just
But
tell me
that's
you wanted this and we could do
well,
that?
that's a whole other thing. And
Yeah.
we have not yet had the banquet specific episode, but
Yeah.
I have plenty of experience of spending a day setting up the ballroom and getting it right to the specifications that were set for me, and then coming in the next morning and the host arrives with very clear, I'm going to change things energy. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons I don't do banquets anymore. Anyway, so moving on. Okay, so because you had mentioned
Right.
scheduling and payroll, and absolutely, I can make an argument that from the staff and the owner's perspective, this might be the single most important part, because of course the staff wants to get paid.
Yeah.
I'm all for volunteer work, maybe just not at a banquet casino or something like that. And then of course I heard constantly from my bosses about watch payroll, watch your labor cost. And we'll get back into that later. But if you don't have things scheduled right, if you're either overstaffed or understaffed, you're setting yourself up for failure.
And I agree 100%. When you're overstaffed, no one is happy, no one is making money. And when you're understaffed, it's like you're drowning in quicksand. You
Yep.
just can never get on top. You can never get until the doors close. And
Yep.
even then you look around and like, I have to do all this closing work, and it's me,
Yep.
and it's not like me and two people like it should be.
Correct.
And on the scheduling again, I have two different scheduling things, two different scheduling idea or things that happened to me. I worked in one place, and it was one of the first jobs I worked as a server, not a bartender. And the manager did not like me and said he did not like me and kept putting me on, moving me up and putting me on better and better shifts. And he told me flat out, he's like, I do not like you at all. He's like, I loathe you as a human being. And I'm like, okay, fine. It was a whole like college fraternity thing. I don't know what his problem was. But he's like, you're one of the best servers we have. This is why you are getting better shifts. I am putting you on more weekends. I'm putting you on busier shifts because you're just better than everyone else at it. He's like,
I
and I need you to be that person. He's like, don't think I'm giving you favoritism or I like you. I don't. Got it. Flip that
at
over
the
to the Oyster Bar where I worked, and I was on the same shifts for 2 years because that place was a tenured place and you were that good. I mean, that is the only place I have worked where it has actually been every server top to bottom was great. I mean, it literally, when you came on that shift, you worked lunches for a year or two before you got a dinner shift.
Yeah. I will say that last year I was running fireside dining up at Deer Valley. That is the dining room that the senior servers want to work at, because
Mm-hmm.
it's basically the best money for the least work. And
Yeah.
so I absolutely did have the benefit of, like, I had a absolutely ace team up there, because if you weren't good, you wouldn't make it up there in the first place. You would be
Oh,
stuck at one of the other restaurants.
oh yeah.
I will say at the Italian place, kind of almost like you were mentioning, I had one of the more senior servers who was an ornery curmudgeon and even admitted that he can and will be an ass to a table sometimes, but he also, and I recognize this because I look at those, I look at my report every night, had consistently the highest sales and the highest tip percentage of any of my servers. Sure,
Yeah.
occasionally someone else might beat him on a night, but 3 nights out of the week, there he was with the highest sales again. And okay, so I mean, sure, recognizing that, of course he gets the better sections. More or less, the servers in that restaurant got the shifts they wanted, but
Yeah.
again, he's going to get the tougher section because he will handle it better, and he's going to make the restaurant the most money from being in that spot.
Yeah. When I ran Cicero's up in Park City for about, I don't know, 4 months, 5 months, their owner was insane, but we had a bartender who he worked Wednesday, Thursday day, and that was it. And I looked at the schedule. I'm like, why is this guy on? And the owner said, oh, he's horrible. We need to get rid of him. I'm like, well, let me see what he does first. And on Wednesday, Thursdays days, we opened at 3 o'clock. We opened at 3 o'clock every day, but we opened at 3 o'clock in the bar downstairs.
Mhm.
And at 3:01, the bar was full because of him. He wanted to work those 2 days, and he did. And he sold like 2, 3 grand in his mid shift. He'd leave at 8 o'clock, and all those people would leave. But that bar was filled for 2 days a week just because of this guy. And the owner wanted to get rid of him because he's like, he doesn't do anything for us. And I'm like, He makes us
What,
$6,000 a week in two
yeah,
days.
what do you mean?
What do you mean? I mean, and
Absolutely.
he does it alone. He does no help. Like I'd come down, I'd wash some dishes for us once in a while, but it was one of those things where when you recognize someone who's really good, it's like I'm helping, but I'm sort of being in the way. I mean, and I'm really good behind the bar, and I'm still just like, he's got this. He does not need me down here at all, watching or seeing what he's doing.
One of the other roles that not just I expected of my banquet staff, but I myself did in banquets is everybody becomes the bar back. Like
Yes.
if the bar needs something and the bartender asks you for it, go get it.
Yeah.
Because, like that's if you're just standing there waiting for something to do, go grab more ice, go get more beer, go whatever it is, because I don't ever want the bartender to have to leave that spot to have to go run something down themselves, because then that's potential sales that they're missing out. And not just is that better for the company overall, but then everyone, sure, maybe that's an extra dollar tip then divided by the 6 people working, all right, 18 cents, whatever, but no, that adds up. That adds up. Anyway, let's take a very quick break here and we will get back to more of the duties of the manager after this break.